Eagles Entertainment.
Eagle Eye in the Sky is fueled by Gatorade, the official sports drink of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Anything that move, I don't care who it is. Let's go. Give me everything you got. Play fast, play hard. Let's meet these boys tonight in their house. It's party time. It's party time. Flan, here we go. Touchdown!
You are listening to the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. Now here's your host, Fran Duffy.
That's right. On the weekend, we're previewing the Super Bowl as the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade, continues. I'm Fran Duffy, and as always, I think we've got a great show for you here on episode number 308. At the top of this week's show, we've got Scouting Report, where I chat with Ben Fennell about this Chiefs-Bucks matchup for Sunday in Super Bowl 55. And the way we're going to talk about this game is by looking back a couple of months ago to when these two teams played in the regular season. It was Week 12. Kansas City Chiefs victory is 27-24. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the third downs in this game on both sides of the ball. What stories will the film tell us? What things could come into play for Sunday's matchup? We'll do all that, and we'll give a prediction at the end of the show. Before we get there, though, just a couple of things I want to make sure we hit on. Number one, I ask you each and every week to go over to our Apple Podcast page and leave us a rating and a review. So I'm going to do it again here today. Not only does it help us in making the show more visible to other Eagles podcast listeners, but it also helps us out in being able to answer your questions. So if you've ever wondered about a specific X's and O's topic, a player, a concept, any kind of scheme, really anything. If you want to look, the free agency's around the corner, the NFL draft's coming up, you name it, we will answer it here on the show. Appreciate everybody that has done so recently, because it really allows us to not only just keep this show going, but make sure that we're staying topical all throughout the year. And we're going twice weekly for the first time throughout the entire calendar year. So appreciate everybody that has already shown us some love. Number two, if you enjoy my conversations with Ben here every single week on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, make sure you go and subscribe to the Journey to the Draft podcast. It's officially draft season. The Senior Bowl's over. We rehashed that earlier this week with Dane Brugler and with Ben. Ben and I tomorrow are breaking down a huge mock draft on tomorrow's show. We're going to see the Eagles take a dynamic offensive playmaker in this mock draft. Ben and I are going to break that down and see what that player's fit would be here in Philadelphia. You do not want to miss that conversation. So make sure you go check that out on the Journey to the Draft podcast, wherever podcasts can be found. That being said, let's get this show rolling. It's time to dive into our chat now in Scouting Report.
Dim those lights. We're headed to the film room for the Scouting Report.
All right, well, time to talk about this Bucks-Chiefs matchup here with my friend Ben Fennell. Ben, it's exciting. It's obviously it's always bittersweet the week of the Super Bowl, but two really fun offenses to break down. I'm looking forward to chatting up with you here about these two teams when they matched up in Week 12 and what it means here for this Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And two stylistically pretty aggressive offenses.
No doubt.
And they do it in a different style. So Bruce Arians, Andy Reid, two really dynamic offenses that love to be aggressive, but the types of quarterbacks they have to do it in much different packages, which is really exciting to see. Two offenses that are elite, explosive, dangerous, but certainly coming in very, very different types of window dressing.
Yeah, I mean, really, it comes down to two things. I'll just jump into my stat that matters. The Chiefs, number one in the NFL in yards after catch. The Bucks, number one in the NFL in deep pass attempts. So it just kind of speaks to the way that both teams kind of operate offensively. That doesn't mean that the Bucks aren't going to create some yak, and it doesn't mean the Chiefs aren't going to go bombs away downfield, but just kind of speaks to how they get chunks of their yardage.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Brady loves to throw the ball down the field, but he does it within rhythm and structure of the offense. He has one of the fastest releases in the NFL. He's not holding the ball. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, holds the ball some of the longest in the NFL. So this week, we're looking particularly at the third downs from that Week 12.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes actually holds the ball the longest in the NFL on third downs, nearly 3.5 seconds. Tom Brady, about 2.5 seconds, nearly a second less. And then when we go to that Week 12 game, Brady got it out faster than he normally does. Patrick Mahomes held the ball longer than he normally does. So 3.49 seconds usually is his average on third down. He held it 3.76 against the Bucks. So they went opposite directions. Mahomes held it longer. Brady got it out faster. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Yeah. One more stat that matters when we looked at these third downs, the Chiefs back-to-back seasons, number one in the NFL in third and longs.
Yep.
So that's how we define it, by 6 or more yards. They always have a confidence and an aggressive approach in picking up those 3rd and 8s, 9s, 10s, 15s. I think we saw him nearly complete a 3rd and 17 to DeMarcus Robinson in that game in Week 12. The Bucks, 27th on third and long. They struggle much more in getting those third and long situations. So obviously different strokes for different folks, two really good offenses, but they excel in different areas at different times.
Before we get into our takeaways, what was kind of your thought process going into this game? Was there something that you were kind of keeping an eye on before we started watching these third down plays?
Well, I knew we were going to have dynamic offenses in very different quarterback packages, but I just wanted to see how much was designed in the offense to help the quarterback. Each of these quarterbacks play a little bit of what we like to call hero ball, which is a lot of pressure on the quarterback to make some wow reads and some wow throws, but in a completely different style. As I keep repeating that, Brady's going to get that ball out fast. Mahomes is going to try to extend and let the coverage break down. However, Andy Reid does design a couple quick hitters that things open up kind of quick. So I just want to see how many quick hitters were going to be in these offenses and how long were they willing to hold the ball in these offenses. And Brady and Mahomes, obviously different points in their careers and different ways of playing quarterback.
So let's just get into before we do the burning questions, let's get into the big takeaway. And for me, kind of going in, I kind of reflected on a quote that we played this week on the Journey to the Draft podcast with Matt Rule, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. He had a press conference last week down at the Senior Bowl. We just played it and reacted to it over on Journey to the Draft. And one of the things that we pulled from that quote was talking about the elite talent around Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. There's going to be a lot written, a lot talked about how it's those two quarterbacks going head to head, passing in the torch, all that. And no question, these guys are two of the best to ever do it. But then when you look around, I mean, the elite, the skill talent around these guys, when you look at Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, you look over on the other side and you see Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and you see the way that the running backs are playing. You look at Scotty Miller and you look at Mecole Hardman. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of really good skill talent up and down the depth chart for both of these teams.
Yeah, but when you watch these third downs, do you feel like they have their go-to guys, those money guys on third down where, it's going to be Kelce and Hill on third down. And on the Bucs side, it's probably going to be Evans and Godwin kind of moving the chains. I know things have changed a little bit with the incorporation of Antonio Brown, and the tight ends have kind of rotated in Tampa. So some weeks, Gronk's the go-to guy, or Cameron Brate, or X, Y, and Z. But the third down in particular, really interested to see who the quarterbacks trust and who the offenses are designing the ball to go to.
I do kind of wonder. We'll get into it. We'll get into that for a little bit later. Let's get into
real quick. Let me just go through my quick takeaway.
Sure.
After watching these two offenses on third downs, the normal quarterbacking taboos, the normal quarterbacking fundamentals, the no-nos don't apply to Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And it's not fair. I sit back in my chair sometimes and say, oh, he can't drift in the pocket. Like, oh, he did. He can't drift his launch point to 12. Oh, he did. He'll drop to 10, 12, 13 yards straight back and still have the ability and have that strong arm to throw off his back foot even deeper down the field. The things that you would traditionally tell quarterbacks not to do don't apply to Patrick Mahomes. That gives the offense flexibility to design bizarre plays like that. Deep post corner. He hit the Tyreek Hill off an 11-step drop in the Super Bowl last year. I got news for you guys. That play doesn't exist. Most quarterbacks can't make that throw. It's too deep of a drop and too long of a throw. Long story short, the things Mahomes doesn't necessarily apply across all quarterbacks or all offenses. So it makes it a unique watch, and he's a very unique player because of that. I don't think he'll always be able to play like this, as these young quarterbacks will always have that kind of crossing of styles in their career where they're going to have to settle down and stop playing improvisationally. But Mahomes at 25 years old is in the prime of that right now.
No question. So let's now kind of get into these 5 burning questions. And this is a little unique because we're watching 2 different teams. So in theory, not just 2 different schemes, but 4 different schemes, because we're looking at on the defensive side as well. I think I had some takeaways in terms of what both sides were trying to do defensively. But biggest takeaway, we'll start with the Bucs offense. Biggest takeaway from when Tom Brady had the football in his hand. I'll let you kick things off here.
Well, it seemed like they were going after man-beating concepts, quick little horizontal action, working isolation routes to Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, shallow crossing routes. Brady wants to get that ball out of his hands. There were also a couple of unique backfield alignments. Cameron Brate was in the backfield down in the low red zone. Antonio Brown was in the backfield. They try to throw a little fade too. So some interesting concepts as well, trying to get those players out into the routes, and the lack of a third down running back presence, allows them to put some unique personnel in that backfield. But it was just different. And I thought the way the Chiefs attacked, which we'll, talk about in a little bit, but I thought the Bucs put a lot of emphasis in their style and design to have man-beating concepts.
Yeah, I think that was certainly a big part of it. And knowing you're going up against Todd Bowles, I mean, you're going to see a lot of man-to-man coverage. Going up against Steve Spagnuolo, you're going to get lots of man-to-man coverage. And I think we saw that play out in that game. To me, the big thing, kind of speaking to your point about in terms of the unique backfield sets, I thought it was really interesting. Number one, we saw a lot of empty, and then we saw them start out in a lot of empty and then motion a back in late. And sometimes it wasn't a back. Sometimes you would see Cameron Brate back there, as you alluded to. I thought there were multiple 0 running back sets on third down. We saw some 0-1 personnel. We saw some 0-2 personnel. Will we see that in this game? Ronald Jones looks like he's going to be healthy. Leonard Fournette obviously has really kind of seen an uptick in his play over the last few weeks, certainly in the playoffs. Playoff Lenny, they're getting him rolling. I kind of wonder how that will impact this matchup. But it's funny. Danny Woodhead mentioned earlier this week on the show. He said, look, if I'm Tom Brady, I'm going up against Steve Spagnuolo, I'm going to try and lean into empty. I did that interview before I went back and watched this film. That's exactly what the Bucs were trying to do, was trying to get things going with some of their empty sets, try and find some of those matchups. Now, I thought it was notable too. I think it was like the first 4 throws from Brady, incomplete. He was 0 for to start. And then he completed every single pass. They didn't convert every third down, but he completed every pass after. I think it was like 7 or 8 passes consecutively after that.
And those first couple were the third and manageables. Those are the third and 6, 3, 3, 2, 2. Also, every third down for Brady was in the shotgun, almost all in kind of spreads, spacing sets. So you're trying to give a little bit of truth serum to that defense and trying to figure out your coverage threats. I thought both defenses did a good job in getting into the backfield, whether it was, Mahomes or Brady. Mahomes obviously going to give you a little bit more time with the way he holds the ball, but Tom Brady, and I feel like this 3rd and 15 later in the game in that third quarter that he hit the deep post to Chris Godwin, it looked like a dagger concept. He didn't throw the dig, throws the deep one. I feel like that was pretty much the consensus, one play that represents it, because Tom Brady has 2 hitters right down his throat, right down the gun barrel. He puts that back foot in, heaves that thing down the field, takes a big hit. I'm not sure he gets to see it completed because of the hit, but just Tom Brady in that pocket clock saying, I'm not going to hold it. I'm going to do my job and get that ball out on time, in structure. Yeah, we had a coverage break there, a protection breakdown up front, but I got to do my job as the quarterback and get the ball out. So the fact they can push the ball down the field in structure, in rhythm, and they don't use a whole lot of play action. They don't use a whole lot of setup of these vertical concepts. It's a lot of pressure on the quarterback position. And in a weird way, I feel for Jameis Winston because that is not a quarterback friendly system. And to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, that's the style of this offense. It is not easy. So it's fun to see a veteran, stud like Tom Brady come in and execute it so well, and to see what it should look like. But that play in particular, that 44-yarder on 3rd and 15, which is a rare 3rd and long conversion for them.
Yeah, that was going to be my one play that best encapsulated what I saw too. And I guess the other side of that coin is I thought that the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo, they brought the heat on Tom Brady. I mean, there was a lot of blitzing, and if they weren't blitzing, it was kind of those fake sugar rushes where they've got guys look like they're about to rush and then they fall out. Very, very often they were bringing guys from the 2nd and 3rd level. And look, I've talked about this in the show before. When you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, when you have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, you've got that offense that you feel confident, hey, they can put up 35 on anybody. That cuts the reins loose on you as a defensive coach, because now you feel confident that I could take risks. I can send heat whenever I want on 3rd down. Hey, you score? Great. Guess what? I know that I'm giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. We're going to let them go to work. But I think that relentlessness as a defense, that showed up in this game. They were very, very aggressive on 3rd down.
It's funny that you say that, because I almost think of the opposite philosophy and saying, defensively with the Chiefs, just don't allow that big play over your head. Play too deep. Keep it in front of you. Make them go 10, 12, 15 play drives to get points. because our offense is explosive. Don't allow that cheapie for the other team. Stay back, keep it in front of you, make them, go those long distance drives. And I got news for you. There's going to be something or some opportunistic situation, whether a turnover, a sack fumble, buckle down in the red zone. And next thing you know, those 1 or 2, 3 stops on drives that you turn them into a field goal or got, a punt. Suddenly that's the difference in winning a game 42-32. You let up points, you let up yards, you have some issues, but just keeping it in front of you and slow burning your opponent, I think, is a great formula.
Yeah, it's I'll be interested to see ultimately which path they decide to go. My gut says they'll follow what they have been, especially in these big games. And I remember back to when it was Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson early in the season, Monday Night Football. That's all Spagnuolo did is blitz, 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 blitz. And Lamar Jackson is much different than Tom Brady, but Brady hasn't been great when you look at the numbers this year. Hasn't been great under pressure. And I kind of wonder, hey, will we see them just kind of turn the heat up, knowing he's going to get his at some point? But if you can turn that into a sack fumble, if you can get kind of a cheapy interception going the other way, that gets you an extra possession. Again, another possession for Patrick Mahomes and all those guys. It will be.
Well, let me ask you, Fran, for a quarterback that's going to get the ball out, what is your kind of general philosophical approach? I got news for you. The blitz isn't getting home. So do you quickly disguise coverage, try to confuse him in that 2.5 seconds, whether it's a looping stunter to try to get somebody pressure into his face, whether it's a coverage confusion? He's going to be the guy to assess the coverage picture pre-snap, know where to go as soon as he catches that shotgun snap. So what can you do defensively outside of playing press and trying to disrupt and giving your coverage in front a chance out there?
To me, the way I look at it is if there are ways, and they did find ways to do this in this game with their different zone exchange concepts as well. The Chris Godwin play that we referred to earlier, that 44-yarder, that was an exchange blitz. It was a cover 9 pressure where you've got 3 deep and you've got 3 underneath. So you've got 6 guys in coverage. It was a 5-man look. You were able to get that free hitter. That time it turned into a 44-yard catch. Other times it turned into incompletions. We've seen Brady throw some picks this year. We've seen him take some sacks this year. And if not, at least get off the field on third down, force an errant throw, and get off the field, force a punt. So I think, especially knowing that I've got that offense, I've got Mahomes, and it's not like these guys have never been here before. They're the defending champs. They've got that pelt on the wall. I kind of feel like, hey, I'm gonna turn the heat up here on Brady and see how it works out for us.
Yeah, and the other day with my good friend Josh Cohen, who works on the CBS broadcast for the Super Bowl coming up, he actually went back and was watching the coaching tape from Super Bowl 42, Giants, Patriots, Steve Spagnuolo. Yep. And I think the consensus is they had the terrors up front, OC, Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan. They rushed 4 and got after him. Nearly every third down, Fran, was an exotic blitz.
Yep.
You had Strahan zone dropping on tight ends. You had cross dogs. You had nickel pressures. I think confusing Brady,
I love that,
and trying to design some sort of quick hitting pressure and maybe taking away a quick hitting throw, I think is going to be the name of the game for Spagnuolo. And I know Super Bowl 42, we're getting a little far removed. Still Tom Brady. It's still Steve Spagnuolo. There's going to be some philosophical beliefs on how you should play this game.
All right, well, let's turn the page and look at the other side now with Patrick Mahomes going up against Todd Bowles. What was your biggest takeaway from the Chiefs' plan of attack going into this matchup?
Again, just the Patrick Mahomes' ability to extend the play, drift in the pocket, have deep route concepts that are in design. So whether that's 2 through the zone stuff, but further down the field, whether it's unique break points or stop routes or sit routes in a deeper aspect of the field. I think we saw McCole Hardman sit down his route over the ball at 17 yards on one of these plays. And there's some unique aspects of the offense because of what Patrick Mahomes can do. Not only his arm strength, but athleticism in combination. But Fran, who are we kidding? Third down, it's Travis Kelce, it's Tyreek Hill. Yep. You got to circle them. I'm pretty sure your eyes go right to them on every third down. And the way they use Tyreek Hill in the slot, number 3 in trips, giving him 2-way goes left and right over the field, down the middle of the field, free access. It just threatens a defense. And as much as he does with the ball, he creates for other people because of that as well. So a lot of cool aspects of this offense.
That was actually my big takeaway from it was these 3-by-1 sets with Kansas City are lethal, man. When you've got Travis Kelce as the ISO receiver on the backside of trips and then Tyreek Hill as number 3 on the trip side, so the furthest inside slot receiver, there are so many different ways that Kansas City can attack you from those looks. And the number one thing from that too is that they kind of have an idea of what you're going to do from a coverage standpoint because of how you line up to that look with Travis Kelce isolated on the backside. And that's why I just find it so hard to defend. And the other big thing too, what they'll do just before the snap, they'll motion Tyreek Hill from number 3 outside of Kelce. So now he becomes number 1. It becomes a 2-by-2 set. And the reason why that becomes such a big deal is it changes the rules. If you're a defense, and let's just say you're the Tampa Bay Bucs secondary, you're going to have rules on a specific coverage call for what this looks like from a 3-by-1 set. Based on the game plan. Hey, these are our rules in coverage. This is the technique we're going to play. As soon as Tyreek Hill moves out to number 1 outside of Kelce, chances are those rules are going to change. Your coverage is going to change, and you're forcing that late communication in the pre-snap phase. They were able to catch him a couple of times, and I actually went and I watched some of the other big plays in that game that came from first and second down. They got him on a couple of plays like that, where they were able to leak Tyreek Hill up the sideline on one of those like late takeoff routes. To me, like that's a big part of this game is when Kansas City is on the field in a 3-by-1 set with Kelce to the boundary and Hill as number 3. I mean, watch out. They could just do so much from those looks.
Yeah, and it's almost like pick your poison defensively, because when you have Kelce and Tyreek so tight to the formation, if you could just kind of follow my visual here, my hands apart, when they're tight, the defense wants to play tight. The safeties want to be tight and reduce. What does that do? Gives more room to the sideline, more room to the width, more horizontal room to run your routes and concepts. So if those defenses then want to say, hey, you know what? We still want to protect deep and protect the width. Now there's room down the middle of the field. So, it creates some interesting conceptual issues for defenses as well. But going to which plays kind of stand out, let's just go right to the first third down conversion.
Okay.
And the last third down conversion, the ones they picked up. They didn't get the first 2 in short yardage, and there was a false start. But The first one was the Tyreek Hill crossing route, the 44-yard touchdown.
That was my play,
on 3rd and 8 against man coverage. Beat Carlton Davis across the field, finished the game to seal it. 3rd and 7, little sprint left. Tyreek Hill once again in man coverage against Carlton Davis.
Great concept.
No question. And the timing was a little bit off. Mahomes was ready to throw it on the sprint left, and Tyreek Hill wasn't even into his break yet. Not just out of his break. He was still in his route stem. So there's a little bit of issue with the landmark and the timing, but there's no way Carlton Davis is staying over him. He's playing a little bit deep because he's afraid of getting beat deep. And all of a sudden, Tyreek Hill breaks it off, and it's easy money. Just like Chad Henne sealed the game 2 weeks ago on that little, quick out on 4th and 1. He is so deadly in man coverage. And I know Todd Bowles wants to let his guys play man. He wants to roll the dice and do his man pressure schemes. I don't know if he has the guys for it. So it's a matter of beating him up off the line of scrimmage and, finding ways just to survive in man coverage, whether it's help over the top, finding robbers to leverage in breaking concepts, and finding unique double team concepts to take him away.
Yeah, I mean, you saw kind of late in that game, there were a couple of different brackets they threw on Kelce when he was isolated. They're trying to throw extra help at, towards Tyreek Hill. They played some 2-man later in the game. I kind of wonder if that's the way that they come out early in this one to say we're not going to get beat the same way early, because Hill he had a boatload of yards. He had 2 touchdowns in the first 4 drives. I know he had a ton of yards in the first half. I got to wonder if they're going to come in knowing like, hey, we got to make sure we make some corrections coming into this one. We can't let that happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. But when I just go down my kind of charting of the plays, Demarcus Robinson, 13-yard scramble, 3-by-1 scramble, QB drifting, QB climbs, then he drifts, scrambles around. So it's so much of holding the ball, letting things break down. And I thought the Bucs did a great job in getting consistent pressure on him. I thought JPP beat the guy in front of him consistently. They just couldn't get to Mahomes. And that's, the name of the game with this Chiefs offense is trying to wrangle this quarterback first and foremost. But, you think, hey, we can prevent, the run on early downs, get them into 3rd and long. They can convert those too. So, it's like pick your poison with them. You got to do something to make them one-dimensional. You got to tie one of their hands behind their back, whether that's, pressuring from a certain direction, taking away Kelce, taking away Tyreek, double coverage allocation. You have to do something to take away one of these threats.
Yeah, it's these were honestly 2 of the big things I wanted to talk about, kind of putting the conversation to bed was, would the Bucs hang in man-to-man, and then the Kansas City tackles against those Tampa Bay defensive ends. We talked about this, last week in regards to that Green Bay game in the NFC title. JPP and Shaq Barrett, I mean, they were game wreckers in terms of being able to get home to Aaron Rodgers. I feel like that's going to be a big key in this one, especially, Kansas City down without, some of their offensive linemen for sure.
Yeah. And, considering I felt the Bucs got consistent pressure on third down, I didn't feel like the Chiefs had a lot of quick hitting, pressure beating concepts in that Week 12 game. So I want to see if maybe Andy Reid can help Patrick Mahomes with some more blitz beaters, some more pressure beaters, some more quick outlet throws to maybe counteract that pressure, especially if they have a few backup offensive linemen and certainly some shuffling around with some, I think, some guards playing tackles and things like that. So on paper, going into the game, it doesn't look good. So I think Andy Reid's going to have some pressure beating concepts and maybe some more misdirection concepts in the backfield and early action.
All right, who wins the game?
I just think the Kansas City Chiefs have too much firepower. I'm not willing to think anyone's going to outscore them. They're going to need something crazy to happen on the other side of the ball, whether it's a big turnover for the Bucs defense or a pick six or a special teams turnover like McCole Hardman unfortunately had last week. But the Chiefs have handled adversity in all these games, whether it's the playoffs last year, getting down 20 points against the Texans and, getting down the very next week and backups all over the place. This team's had adversity. They've handled it. I'm not going to be the one to count them out. Now, you got Tom Brady on the other side. So not usually in the business of counting him out either. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I expect it to be a high scoring game. I'm going to say 34-31 Chiefs in a pretty classic Super Bowl.
All right. So you gave a score, and I wasn't really predicting. I wasn't really planning on a score. So I do like the Chiefs in this one too, for a lot of the reasons that you brought up.
You go close game, high scoring, defensive
I'm gonna go
blowout.
No, I'm gonna go high scoring game. I'm gonna go 40-28. Kansas City gets a touchdown late that makes it seem a little bit further away than it actually is. I think it'll be a close one, at least through three quarters. I think this is gonna be a really fun one. I'm really looking forward to the matchup, and we'll talk about it next week here on the show. But the big topic next week for me and you, Ben, because we're going to get back into looking at some specific players. And this one will have a little bit of an Eagles twist here. The new offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, comes from the LA Chargers. And obviously they have their star quarterback, Justin Herbert. I did want to, coming into this offseason, I wanted you and I to do a little bit of a study on Justin Herbert. So here's our homework for next week. We're going to do a 4-game study of Justin Herbert, all of his throws on third down. There were actually a lot of third down throws in this 4-game sample. The 4-game sample, I just wanted to pick one middle of the season, right about where he was starting to heat up and get a sense of what he was doing well. So I picked from week 10 to week 13. And what's kind of funny about this, all AFC East teams right in a row. They played the Dolphins, Jets, Bills, and Patriots. So
you played 4 in a row, AFC East?
4 in a row. It was really kind of fun. So from week 10 to week 13, we're going to watch all of Justin Herbert's third down throws. We'll talk about some of the things they do schematically, some of the things we saw from the rookie quarterback, the number 6 overall pick in last year's NFL draft.
I think the only thing I know going in, Fran, is he was excellent under pressure.
Yes.
So that's really all I know, especially once he started to get his stride and was a starter for a couple of weeks. I think it was him and Aaron Rodgers were at the top of the league under pressure. So interested to see how much of that is maybe quarterback created, how much of that is offensive line created. Yep. Is he not getting the ball out? Can he extend on his own? Definitely interested to see how he was creating those situations.
It's going to be a fun study for sure. And I always love watching blue chip talent, and certainly he has proven to be exactly that so far in his NFL career. Ben, it'll be fun. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. We will talk to you next week. Great stuff from Ben, who you can follow on Twitter, just like I do, at @BenFennell_NFL. And while you're at it, I'm at EaglesXOs. That's where I post all the podcasts I'm a part of and all of our X's Knows content that we produce here at Eagles Entertainment. You know how much I appreciate everybody that promotes this podcast on all forms of social media. That's one way to support the show. But the best way is to go into Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, leave us a rating and leave us a comment. I wanted to give a shout out today to 2 people who did exactly that. DNogs58 left us a 5-star review saying, how did the offense change in 2018 to 2020 after Frank Reich left for Indianapolis? What differences did you notice? And also, what do you believe contributed to Carson Wentz's poor play in 2020? Well, I will say this: if I knew the answer to the drop in the play this year, obviously I would not be in the position that I'm in, because there are people that are a lot smarter than me that are going to make those assessments. But this is what I'll say. Did the offense change schematically when you look from 17, especially to 2020? No question. It was much different schematically, philosophically. You saw some shades of what they did, back in those days, but it was not the same offense. They didn't do all the same things. Now, doesn't mean that they didn't run individual plays that were like that. The run game was certainly very similar, but from a pass construct standpoint, it was certainly very different. And is that the number one reason? Did the quarterback's play completely drop on his own individually? It's always tough to have those kind of conversations, right? To divorce the play of the players on the field from the scheme and what they were asked to do. But that's why, that was a big reason why there was a change with the coaching staff, right? And so I'm excited to see, what Nick Sirianni is going to do here with the players that are here in Philadelphia. You look at Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts, whatever they decide to do at quarterback, but you look at the young receivers, you look in the backfield, you look at tight end. There are certainly talent in terms of all the different skill position players. I'm excited to see how these guys are deployed and how they're able to play on some of those matchups. And then we've got one more question from Michael J. Infoman PA, left a 5-star review saying, Fran, just finished watching the entire Eagles season in all 22. One observation that is a pet peeve of mine is the closing minutes of the half with the defense on the field. Why did they always make it so easy for the opponent to score? I get so annoyed when I repeatedly saw the defensive line in a cover 2 with no attempt to disguise it. The opposing quarterback just kept completing 10-yard passes until they at least got a field goal. It's like the Eagles gave them an automatic 3 points. Have you noticed this? I don't watch other teams all that much, but have seen them mix it up a little bit and disguise their coverages a little bit better. So, Michael, it's a good question. I think, look, you can go one of two ways with that, right? Because I can go back to that NFC title game. We talked about that game earlier with Ben. Kevin King giving up that touchdown to the Tampa Bay Bucks late in the half to Scotty Miller, right? They were playing a little bit more of an aggressive look, no safety help over the top, and he gets burned for a big play for a touchdown. Obviously, you don't want that to happen, and that became a turning point in that game. It was a real momentum swing for the Bucks, and obviously points that Green Bay just failed to be able to overcome. You don't want that to happen, right? So there's probably a happy medium in there, but I think ultimately, when you look at the styles of defense, I answered a question a few weeks ago when it was announced that Jim Schwartz would not be returning. Should the Eagles go 3-4 or 4-3? I think ultimately it comes down to, are you going to put your stress on your coverage or on your fronts? Are you going to be putting, say like, hey, we're going to be really exotic with our different coverage looks and we're going to try and confuse teams, or we're going to play the same handful of coverages and then we're going to play fast. And I think ultimately it comes down to really one of those two things, for a defense. And I think it's really interesting, kind of looking at that, especially with it being so topical, with it just having happened in the NFC title game. I don't know where the Eagles ranked in terms of giving up field goals and 2-minute drives and, before the half or things of that nature. I think obviously that's a philosophy thing where, hey, we're not going to give up the big play touchdown. You can try and dink and dunk, and we're going to make you chip away at us. And if you can get a field goal, hey, more power to you. But we're going to prevent the big play touchdown. And we're going to play fast on our side. We're going to play cover 2. We're going to play cover 3. We'll play man-to-man coverage. We'll play cover 1, and we'll make you dink and dunk your way down the field. So good questions there from D. Noggs, from Michael J., and all of you out there for your continued support of this show and all the rest of our podcasts here at Eagles Entertainment. All that being said, I think that'll do it. Another show in the books here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. For everybody here at the Duffy House, I'm Fran Duffy. We'll talk to you next week.